This is Holding Court with Patrick McEnroe.
The other guy we got to mention is Holger Rune, who I love him. He's got the personality, of course, which has rubbed some of the players the wrong way in his first couple years on tour. I think that he'll evolve. He's cocky. Okay, he's cocky, and he's sometimes, that thing with Wawrinka in Paris last year, where Wawrinka sort of pulled him in when they shook hands, which Rune won that, and then he went on to win the tournament. Remember, he beat Djokovic in the final. That was indoors in Paris last fall. Wawrinka pulled him in and said, listen, you can't act like this, grow up, basically. And then Wawrinka beat him. I believe it was in Indian Wells. He beat him, and then Rune said, well, do you have anything to say now? So I kind of like that. I do think that you sort of get policed by the other players, and you got to have a respect level. But what I love about what he brings to the table is he's got the same kind of energy that Alcaraz has. He's very jumpy. He's extremely athletic. You saw him hit a couple balls into the crowd. If you saw the Monte Carlo final, which was a great match, he had points to go up 5-1 in that final set against Andre Rublev. Rublev hung in there, continued to battle, and it was late in the set where Rune doubled a couple of times and hit a couple balls out of the stands, which is an automatic fine if you do that, if you hit it into the crowd. And the crowd started booing him, so he says to bring it on, let me hear more of it. Tennis needs that. We need that. I don't like it when you get, do stuff that's unsportsmanlike to your opponent and things like that. But you like his personality. I think that if he gets a little bit more consistent, Rune, he still makes mistakes sort of out of nowhere, and that's why even those couple doubles came in. You see him just spray balls. If he can clean that up, he's become a little bit more disciplined in his shot selection, particularly at big moments, I think this guy's a potential Grand Slam winner, no doubt about it, but particularly on clay and a slowish hardcourt, because he can generate some serious firepower off both sides. He likes to play the drop shot a la Alcaraz. He's not afraid to try stuff, which in the era that we've been living in, people saying everybody plays the same, they play from the baseline, it's the same type of game. Now you're seeing these guys come with major game, with the slice, with the ability to come forward, like Alcaraz, like Rune. Sinner is just a massive hitter and a great mover and a great mentality. He doesn't quite have the mid-court game that those guys have, but with that Killer Cahill, my buddy from ESPN, coaching him, he's going to work on a lot of that stuff. And I just love Sinner's work ethic. So when you look at those three guys, you throw maybe Korda when he comes back healthy. He's similar age, that maybe a year or so older. Obviously, you've got the more younger veteran American guys like Fritz, Tiafoe, Tommy Paul. Those guys are more 24, 25, but really doing well. Paul, I think, is top 20 at the moment. So you like to see where tennis is going on the men's side. And, of course, now let's go to Djokovic a bit, because he played in Monte Carlo. Of course, he wasn't allowed to come and play in the U.S. You know my thoughts on that. I hope it happens by the U.S. Open when they lift these sanctions on unvaccinated foreigners. But that's far away. Now he's going to be able to play a full clay court season, as he himself said after losing to Musetti in his second match in Monte Carlo. He's, as we all know with Djokovic, even though he's an unbelievable clay court player, won the French a couple of times and won multiple Masters series on clay, it's the surface that's the most challenging for him. It's the one that he needs the most practice, maybe not even his practice as much as he says match play. So he's playing this week in Bosnia, his foundation sponsoring that tournament, of course, close to where he's from in Serbia. That tournament used to be in Serbia, but they've moved it to Bosnia. Banja Luka is the name of the city it's in. So he will get started. Actually, Wawrinka, I was just watching, was playing his match against a youngster from France who's one of the good young up-and-comers. He's been winning a ton of matches on the Challenger circuit. Let me get his name because I'm spacing right now on it. Tournaments, we're in Bosnia, Herzegovina. Luka Van Ache, who just won. Actually, he just beat Wawrinka 6-4 in the third. So it would have been nice to see Stan the man against Joker, because if they've had some epic battles in huge matches. Of course, Stan beating him in the Australian Open, U.S. Open final. I think he beat him in the final there as well. Anyway, Stan has done well to come back from his injuries, but he's well past his prime. So we'll see how this young French guy does. So Joker is going to play there. He's going to probably play. Will he play Madrid and Rome? He'll play at least one of those. It sort of depends probably on how he does in this tournament. The other, of course, big story for the men, the big question mark. I think I've mentioned all the guys that you expect to be in contention at the French. Casper Ruud would be the other. He's dipped off a little bit this year, which is not that unexpected after reaching 2 major finals last year. I thought he played above his weight a little bit last year. So if he can hang around that, 5 to 8 range, I think that would be a good effort for him. But clay is going to be important. I think it was did he win Estoril? He played deep somewhere in one of those earlier clay court tournaments. So we'll see how he does. We've got a bunch of tournaments this week because you've got Barcelona going on. I'm going to get to Nadal in a second. He usually owns Barcelona. I think he's won it like 9 times or something. He calls it his home tournament, even though he's from Mallorca. He spent a lot of time at that beautiful club there in Barcelona. You've got Munich going on this week. You've got the tournament that Joker's in Bosnia. So there's 3 men's tournaments this week. There's also a big women's tournament. I'll get to the women after the break in Stuttgart. That's always one of the most popular stops on the tour for the women. It's an indoor clay court tournament, so that's the way they sort of ease into it. Of course, they had Charleston a couple weeks ago here in the U.S. on the green clay, which is an awesome event as well. So Joker will try to get those matches in. He's obviously, concerned about one thing and one thing only. That's the French, making sure he's ready for that. My suspicion is he will absolutely be ready for that. The question about Rafa is much dodgier. We don't know if he's going to be ready. We've seen some video of him practicing. Normally, he likes to play a lot on clay to get himself ready. He's the kind of guy that needs to get matches, but does he really need that many matches at this point in his career? If he's physically fit, that's the number one thing for him, because he can play his way into the French in the first couple of rounds. I mean, he usually just steamrolls people in those first couple of rounds. That gets him court time. That gets him out there for a couple hours at a stretch. So, he normally in most of his years, you would say, because you look at his results, he's dropped down to like 15, by the way, in the rankings. That'll be another interesting thing. The French Federation, who, of course, makes the draws and the seedings, they've always gone exactly by the rules. Not the rules, the rankings, whatever the rankings say. I went crazy about this. Was it last year or the year before when Rafa had to play Joker? I think it was in the quarters. Was that what year was that when Rafa won it? He beat him in the final in the pandemic year. Then they played again. I'm losing track. Rafa won it again last year. We know that. So I didn't like that. But I don't think they're going to change. I mean, if they didn't change last year, it's hard to imagine that they're going to put Rafa, the 1 or 2 seed, which I personally think they should, or at least top 4, because now he's going to be, unless he goes on some run in these clay court tournaments, which is looking unlikely just based on how many he's going to play, he's going to be well outside the top 10 come time for Roland Garros. So that, I think, is the biggest question mark that we're all sort of want to have answered. I think we know who are going to be the serious contenders. Alcaraz, was great on clay last year. Does he have, the patience if he needs it? He's such a shot maker. I think in the long run, he's going to be a better hard court player than clay. But he moves, unbelievably well. It's just sometimes you feel like, maybe he plays too aggressively to be that good on clay. To go up, to beat a Djokovic, to beat a Rafa best of 5. Rune, we'll see where he goes. If anyone else appears to have a shot. Ruud is the kind of guy that make you hit a million balls on a clay court. So there's a lot of questions that need to be answered in the next couple of weeks on the men's side. So we'll take a little quick break now. We'll move over and talk about how the women have looked in this post-Australia world of professional tennis. Patrick McEnroe here on Holding Court.
Holding Court is powered by Mudhouse Media.